and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Eyes, Guts, Throat, Bones by Moira Fowley. This is hands down one of the most beautiful, disturbing covers I've ever seen. I really love the macabre imagery and the red and black and pink colour palette. I've actually been displaying this book on my nightstand because I just think it's so pretty and a piece of art. Now of course you should never judge a book by its cover, but I think that this book is just as beautiful and just as disturbing to read as it looks. Moira Fowley is a queer Irish author who's mostly done YA novels up till now, but this is her first collection of adult horror short stories. I believe from reading her acknowledgements that she was supposed to be working on another young adult novel and then inspiration just struck and she ended up writing this instead, and we thank her for it because this is wonderful. This is a gruesome, sapphic and beautiful collection of horror short stories. These stories are super varied, they're all written in quite different styles. Moira always keeps you guessing and wondering what possibly could be next. Altogether there are 15 short stories and they're divided into different sections. So we've got eyes, guts, we've got an interval, and then we've got throat and bones. However, these short stories aren't presented linearly, as in we don't see all of the eyes stories, then all of the guts stories. They're actually jumbled up throughout the whole book, so you're constantly getting a couple here, then an eyes and a bones, then a couple throats, and so on. Sounds a bit weird when you say it like that. I'm not sure if there's any rhyme or reason with how she's presented the stories in the order that it's in. If anyone's read the book and has any thoughts on that, let me know. I'm certainly too stupid to figure out. I think the short stories under the different headings of eyes, guts, etc. all have different themes that relate to that section, but I again was too stupid to figure that out. I did see someone's review on Storygraph where they outlined what each of the sections means. However, when I read the descriptions and then reflected on the stories, I was a bit like, I would have put that into bones or I would have put that into guts, I'm not sure. So this reviewer said that eyes represented seeing the truth and horrors of the real world. They said that guts was expressing internal struggles with body horror. They said that throat was about suppression and consequences of expression. And finally that bones was about survival and transformation. I could kind of see lots of these stories fitting multiple of these themes, so I'm not sure I buy into that, but it does sound nice and it does sound correct, so take their word for it. I won't make a comment on that. Sounds good, whatever. Now, I did enjoy all of these stories, but of course I have several favourites, which I'll tell you a little bit more about now. Sorry, I am going to very lightly spoil some of these stories, so if you don't want to know, then skip to the next section. My favourite stories and the ones I'm going to slightly spoil are What Would You Give for a Treat Like Me?, Wrath, Only Corpses Stay, and Big Round Ball of Light in the Water. I really enjoyed the opening story, which was called What Would You Give for a Treat Like Me? This story was about a band of survivors during the apocalypse, kind of walking through the wilderness, but as they go along, horrible things happen to the people that are part of their party. They keep transforming in unusual ways, kind of becoming part of the world around them. And throughout this, there's subtext between our main character of the story and her female partner, her wife, and there's tension between them because before this apocalypse happened, they'd been in conflict over whether to have kids or not, and this main character is saying aren't you relieved that we didn't have kids given what's happened, and her partner that really wanted kids is taking some offence to that. So we've got this really cool, really horrific horror story with real human internal struggles underneath the level of the story as well. And all of the stories throughout the book are like this. They're all sapphic, they're all about lesbians and lesbian relationships. I think it's really cool to have a collection that's centred around the lesbian experience, something in the dystopian and horror genre where we might not see a lot of that representation otherwise. And I think this horror kind of genre kind of gives itself to exploring the horrors of kind of internalised homophobia or the struggles of being gay in the world sometimes. Moira Fowley is Irish-French I believe, and a lot of the stories are set in Ireland, are heavily inspired by Irish mythology. Nowadays Ireland is a very progressive country with regards to gay and trans rights, but historically with its Roman Catholic roots there is a deep history of homophobia in Ireland, as there is everywhere to be fair. And I think Moira now she must be like in her 30s, maybe late 20s. She has grown up since the 90s. In the 90s things weren't so progressive, and she's probably experienced what it was like to grow up as a young queer person in Ireland, and I think that informs the themes in some of these stories as well. Another of my favourite stories was called Wrath, and this is about this hill called the Wrath in this woman's hometown. It's kind of over a mass grave and like some supernatural being underneath, but on the surface it's just this hill where teenagers go to like get drunk and make out. Every year on Midsummer, this character meets her female best friend and they get drunk and they get high and they end up making out. The story kind of takes them through about 30 years of friendship. Their friendship actually, they go separate ways with it, probably because of the feelings they had for one another, but every year at Midsummer they still meet up on the Wrath and make out and do other stuff. Even when they have relationships, sometimes straight relationships or kids at home, it's kind of like that one night a year where they explore maybe their true feelings. And I think the story is about people dealing with that internalized homophobia that they may have. My next favourite, and maybe my like biggest favourite overall, was Only Corpses Stay. This is kind of about a military group of mostly young people. There's kids and then there's like young adults and adults, and they're quite military, they're quite armed, and they move from base to base along this fence line, and on the other side of the fence line there's these kind of vague monsters. They have this system where they move base every, I think it's every 60 days or something. They do tend to like lose people along on this journey, so it's quite dangerous to go from base to base. However, they've figured that staying behind is even more dangerous and only corpses stay. This story kind of has several timelines, like the current timeline and what happened in the past. It's kind of, to be very brief, about these two girls that love each other and have feelings for each other. They're younger kids in this military band that move from base to base. They make a scheme to run away because they see that there's a base on the other side of the fence near the coast where they can go and escape, and they might be able to stay and kind of put down roots, but one ends up running away without the other one. And then in the current timeline, it's about 10 years later, our main protagonist is starting to put the pieces together and figure that actually maybe she didn't run away, maybe she was cast out. And so she goes in search of answers and goes to find her. I really like the post-apocalyptic theme of this one, and I like that there was a good twist at the end. I feel like that would have made a really good larger book as well that you could have really built on, but I think it worked really well as a short story as well. And finally, Big Round Ball of Light and the Water. This one was kind of about a cult. So this is about a bunch of women on an island living in a commune with one guy, and they're all married to him. I think there's about 8 of them, and they all sleep with him and have children with him. And he tends to kill the male children and keep the young girls as his future wives. That every morning these girls pray and they bring the sun up out of the water, and they think that if they didn't do that, the sun would never rise. But over time they start to doubt this fact and see it as a manipulation and conspire to run away. There is also a nice twist at the end of this one. They do end up running away, but it turns out that their delusion was not a delusion at all, and the sun ends up never rising again. And while this negatively affects the rest of the world, they actually live much happier lives, even though it's in darkness. It's in a darkness that they choose, in a sense. So that's a few of my favourites. There are lots of others that I enjoyed as well, but I don't want to spoil all of them, so we'll just leave it at that. Now, there's lots of different styles used to tell these stories. Some of them, like the ones I've just mentioned, are kind of straight up just a story. There's a variety of perspectives used, even when it is just a straight up story. There's first person perspective, there's second person, and there's third person. So she really explores all of the different techniques. But we have lots of other interesting formats going on as well. So we have one story called Two Truths and a Lie, and this is kind of about a girl and a haunted doll, and the whole story is presented as two truths followed by a lie. So for example, on the first page, and I'll keep it really brief and not read it all, but it says, truth, she took the doll out of the plastic. Truth, the doll was beautiful. Blah 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 blah, more text. Lie, her mommy didn't like the doll, not from the start and not at the end. So at the end of each kind of paragraph you're getting a little like, oh wait, So her mommy did like the doll? Wait, why? And it kind of pulls you through the story in that sense. The next section talks about how the doll had a voice box on its back and you push the button and the voice talks. But the lie at the end of this section is, if she had wanted to stop the doll from talking, she could simply have removed the voice box. This tells you that the doll is talking without its voice box. So what? Is it a haunted doll? Something's not right. And it's very ominous and eerie, going through presenting opposite facts at the end of each paragraph. Another format she uses is play. So during the interval, which isn't attributed to any of the sections, we have sad straight sex at the end of the world. And this is a play about a man and a woman who meet in a hotel room to have sex, and the world is ending around them. There's like the apocalypse going on. I think like a meteorite's about to hit or something crazy like that. And the woman is a lesbian and she's kind of regretting it the whole time, and the two are not connecting, and both of the characters kind of speak to the audience, and there's stage directions for how they move around the stage and how they relate to one another. So I really enjoyed that format as well. Then we have The Summoning, which is about this girl who summons a demon, and the format this is written in is, it's still like a story, but it's a very chatty narration style. We have this character called Katie who's kind of telling the story of what she did, but she's denying what she did at the same time, but it kind of changes throughout the story. So it starts like this. So say, just for instance, somebody, not Katie, had like summoned an interdimensional demon from some kind of hell world and like unleashed it on the earth. Definitely not Katie. That would be like not entirely the worst thing somebody, definitely not Katie, could do, because for instance, Earth as it wasn't particularly great, really. So maybe in fact this person, not Katie, would actually be doing the Earth a favour by summoning this demon. The demon was actually pretty small. Not that Katie would know, not ever having summoned an interdimensional demon from some kind of hell world. So the whole story is written like that. Might be kind of annoying for someone, but I think it's very fun, and it's very fun to read out loud. Would love to do it for like some kind of drama class. We also have a story called Saying Its Name Breaks It, and this story kind of presents a series of riddles about what's going on. I didn't really jive with this story as much. I got a little bit confused, not by the riddles, just by the way it was described. But it was a good story, and I did think the riddle format was really cool. And then another story called Breakup Poem Recited Knee Deep in Bog Water. This one has different paragraphs with different subheading sections. Don't know if you can see that, but kind of like this. This section down here, A Song to Call the Bones, is kind of a song, kind of like a spell, very witchy. And then we have a couple of tarot card headings. So we've got the Devil, we've got Knight of Wands. So I won't tell you too much about that one because I can't remember honestly, but that one is very interesting. And the final one, called Playing House, this has a format where there's a house inside of this person and there's a story going on there, but then she's waking up and walking this dirt road outside with the house inside her. Sorry, it's very confusing to describe. And as she's on this road, on this journey, she's meeting lots of different animals, like a fox and a hare and a squirrel, and asking them about the house inside of them. So this had a real like fairy tale, Aesop's fable kind of feel. So there's lots of really cool, really interesting stories, lots of really interesting formats. I feel like this is really a like literary showcase of Moira and all her talents. I thought it was really entertaining and really impressive, and I think I'd definitely give some of these stories a reread. I would highly recommend this book to anyone that likes horror, anyone that likes short stories, anyone that likes literary fiction, and if you enjoy queer and lesbian stories and want to read more, you definitely have to pick this up. This is a must read. Let me know what you thought of this book, let me know if you pick it up, and let me know what your favourites are. I hope you enjoyed my review. Please pick up this book and read it if you're at all curious. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more reviews. Like this video if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, and tune in for my next review. Bye!